Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Till versus Taylor fight. And so if you are new around here and you have not yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So this is of course a Misfits event. It's what I normally do with these Misfits events, being that I kind of go through the whole card and pick out a winner from each one. They're not going to be the most in-depth of reviews because, to be honest, not every single fight is a big fight, and especially on this card in general, it's not the best of Misfits cards, so there's not always going to be the most in-depth of analysis from me because there really isn't too much to go off, and it's just going to be, the base kind of overview and a prediction. And I feel like perhaps we'll maybe get a little bit more in-depth for the main event, but in general, like I say, this is quite a poor card. Arguably, you could say one of the worst cards Misfits has ever put on. They are coming off a very big high with the Qatar card where they had Gib shine against Slim. They had Salt Pappy, another fighter who performed very well versus Kenny. You had Deji on it as well. You were meant to have HS, but that pulled out, but was still, a name involved. And there was other fighters as well, which were very good fights. And so, you could argue that perhaps Misfits, they may be low on names because, like I say, you come off an event like that where you're showing most of your talent and you're, putting on a big show and it looks good and you're getting attention, and it was perhaps one of the first big shows since the Prime card, to be completely honest. And the fact that they didn't have a Logan Paul or a KSI on it and still was able to perform well shows to the level of talent in which they do have on Misfits. But you just got to think, do they have a bit of a low roster or weak roster? When you look at, other promotions, you kind of have to really build up a roster and really, you have to keep getting names in at the lower levels to keep creating names, but you also really have to have a secure enough roster to be able to consistently put on events at the level in which they want to with Misfits and the amount in which they want to with Misfits. And this one, I don't know, I just feel like, in my opinion, they've kind of maybe taken a bit of a dip with this one. That's not to say that they're not going to be able to get back to the heights in which they have been, because they do, like I say, have some quality fighters who are made for Misfits and are going to bring in the eyes and the entertainment and everything like that. But, the main event that was supposed to be this was a very good main event. I mean, Till, I think, as a fighter, he's wanting tough tests and he's not really shied away from saying yes to opportunities. I think he's been very unfortunate with fighters pulling out. I mean, he had Cesar Chavez Jr. pull out in the fights that was meant to happen before, and that would have been, an interesting exhibition. And, of course, we then had the Fury drop out. That was strange how all of that happened. Maybe it's because Fury had some sort of other offer come in. Maybe he just kind of lost interest. Maybe he was actually somewhat scared of Till going and doing something like kicking him in the head. Till is very entertaining, and I believe that he has the potential to be a great Misfits fighter. I think, to be honest, he perfectly fits the kind of Misfits scene, but I also think at the same time, if he is able to lose, or if he is to lose versus a Taylor, I'm just not too sure if he's going to want to fight again, and I'm not too sure if he's going to want to fight on Misfits on a lower position on the card. I don't think he's not going to want to be the main event, to be completely honest, and that's completely fair. He's been a professional fighter at a very high standard, and he's earned his pedigree, in which he has, and so, like I say, he could be very entertaining on the mic. He's got that kind of persona about him, which, to be honest, does just shut down any of the American kind of talk in which Taylor is coming with. He's very British, he's very raw, and for me, that's entertaining. But like I say, it's just going to be a big thing here. I think he is taking a risk in fighting Anthony Taylor. I think, Taylor has fought most big Misfits fighters and has had success against quite a few of them. This is going to be a tough test for him. I think the Tommy Fury fight, arguably, I know Tommy Fury beat Taylor, but perhaps that could have been an easier fight. And even if he would have lost that fight, Till, he didn't really lose too much credibility, I believe, because it is a more professional type fighter who arguably has fought at a higher level, facing that of Jake Paul, and has had more star moments in his career than that of Taylor, who hasn't had the opportunities always given to him. He was, close to fighting KSI on that 2v1, and other than that, didn't really, has had big wins in the past, but like I say, hasn't been always given the opportunities that he's asked for. But he's worked hard to get to this position, Taylor. I think Till is, like I mentioned, putting a lot on the line, facing somebody like Taylor with the star power in which Till does have and the ability he does have to be a Misfits fighter. I think that's a good fight, but like I say, when you look down the card and you look at the other fights on the card, I'll start going through them now, but yeah, they're not always the most highest levels, and also the card isn't that big of a card. I believe Bevo is off the card. It's crazy to even think that Bevo was going to be associated with Darren Till, let alone on the same card. I believe he's off again. Pulled out another fight, I believe, and so we'll start off with Gareth versus Hat. Gareth is for the Bad Boy Chiller Crew group. I really don't know too much about them. I've heard of them, and Hat is another rapper of some kind, and he had that one TikTok song that went viral, and it's really a fight in which I don't really think there's too much in it. I think Hat's gonna win. Not really any reason as to perhaps Hat looking a little bit bigger, but they're both quite big guys. They're definitely going to slug it out. It's going to be a very strange heavyweight contest, but there's been lots of them or higher weight contests on Misfits in the past where perhaps the level has been very low, but we've just been able to see a kind of slug it out, probably ends in the first round or two. And yeah, like I say, I think Hat will probably win, but like I say, there's really not too much that I'm going off for that fight. Moving on to Brooks versus Gavinio. Gavinio is an interesting guy. He's went viral on TikTok for a little bit, and I suppose is trying to reinvigorate his social media career by coming onto Misfits. And Brooks is quite an outspoken guy and has a lot of followers from what he's saying. But he's had a few fights on Misfits. He had that big win versus Rhino, where Rhino didn't look good, and Brooks landed shots, was able to get him out of there, but Reiner was really low level opposition. I don't think Gavinio is going to be high level opposition, but when Brooks did step up and faced Kenny, he got completely outclassed, and Kenny, of course, just got stopped versus Sopapi. So you got to notice the levels in which there are. Brooks is back again. He's facing Gavinio. Gavinio, from what I've seen, hasn't had a fight. I'm gonna say Brooks is gonna win. I think it's going to be another easy performance for Brooks where he could probably get another early knockout. So perhaps I'm predicting two very early stoppages in the heavier weight division. So I suppose in that aspect it would provide entertainment, but just names wise, they're not really that kind of noticeable names. Moving on to Hamid versus Johnson. This is a very strange fight again. I mean, it's just interesting to see Misfits have come and they've bought and I suppose signed quite a few professional fighters now, and I suppose maybe are trying to create a bit of a professional league. But the fighters in which they've been putting them in against, I know fighters have to learn, they have to develop, and a lot of the time in the actual professional game, they are learning and developing against journeyman type opposition. But this in Johnson is a very low level opposition. I believe he was 0-6 professionally, won a decision in a low level, low scene YouTuber influencer type card show, and now he's fighting Hamid, who I think Sami Hamid is good. I don't think he's bad. I think he can show off some skills, and I think he is perhaps coming in with a bit more confidence than that of his brother, and I think he has that more star, sellable, misfits type persona than that of Adam Hamid. But I think Adam Hamid is the better fighter with the more crisper skills, and Sami Hamid, I think, perhaps does have more development to do. Should this be against this level of opposition? I don't believe so. I think he's going to make easy work of Johnson. I think if he doesn't make easy work, then it's poor from him, to be completely honest. And I think Johnson, I think he's like 40 or something. 40, 0-6 professionally. I just don't really see many reasons as to why Hamid wouldn't be able to get an early stoppage as well. I feel like it could be 3 early stoppages in a row with some poor levels of performances shown. Hamid, I think, will look good, but like I say, I think his opponent will just look very poor. Where even if Hamid looks amazing, it's just going to highlight how bad Johnson looks. And so, I just feel like that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be, like I say, I'm moving on. Will we see these misfits professional fighters fight each other? I would love to see that. I would love to see some of them go up against each other and really test themselves early on in their career. But to be honest, I just don't see it happening. Hamid has the name to be a Misfits fighter, but just isn't really doing anything so far. And I don't even know what kind of route they're going to go down. Are they going to put him into titles? I just don't see a Misfits Central Area title fight. So I just don't really know what kind of route they're going to go down with these professional fighters, but we'll have to wait and see. Moving on to Jade versus Shah. I think this is an interesting contest. I mean, Jade came off the win versus Shrew, where yes, it was very scrappy, and yes, it wasn't clean, but she had a bit of success behind the jab and was continually moving back. I feel like if it was a much smaller ring, then perhaps the fight could have gone a bit differently, but Rue was just struggling to get any sort of momentum with her, was struggling to get in close at all, and was just really taking a lot of shots just by doing the same thing over and over again. And Jade was being very repetitive but having success, so there was no real reason to change because Haru just didn't change her game plan as well and just wasn't able to get inside because I just think her skills were limited. So Jade now moves on to now fight a BK Pro, who's I believe 2-2 from what I've seen. I haven't seen any footage of her. It's seemingly that Misfits are just putting any of their women's fighters just up against bare knuckle fighters who really aren't that good. And to be honest, I don't think Shah even has that big of a platform either or that big of a following. I just feel like perhaps they want to class it as a step up and they want to, put her against somebody who's actually fought a few fights, or just on the fact of there's not many names in which are available for something like Jade to fight. Even though, it's classed as for the women's lightweight title, I feel like there's less and less influence of women actually getting involved in it now. So I think Jade will win. I think it's probably not going to be a nice performance. I think she can get behind the jab again and probably have success just doing the same thing again as what she did versus a Haru fight. I don't think it's that technically skilled, but it's doing what you have to do to be able to win at the end of the day, and that's all that matters. And yeah, it's just interesting to see how we are getting these bare knuckle fighters coming in rather than influencers to come in and try and test the opposition of the women's fighters instead of putting other influencer women against influencer women anymore. Moving on to Mitchell versus Hench, which is another, again, interesting contest. I feel like you could say that about most of the fights on this card, to be completely honest, as to why they've been put against each other. I mean, Mitchell, I don't know much about him. I know that he fought professionally and had an alright record in like 2011. Then he came back and fought in, I believe, 2020 or 2022 and had a win. Uh, Now he's training out of with Clifton Mitchell, and he looks quite good. He looks like this perhaps could be one of the more skilled contests on the card. Two fighters who have at least got it fighting experience. Mitchell, a professional boxer, Hench fought a lot in white collar, picking up white collar belts, and not looking amazing in them, but just being able to have success, having good power, and also he fought on a while ago. I think it was. Modine versus General G card that HS Tiki Toki put together. He fought on the undercard of that, which was a horrible show, which was just in a gym, which was crowded by people and definitely wasn't sanctioned at all. I believe he won, and so he's had, like I say, fighting experience. I think Mitchell is the much better fighter. I think he's the more skilled fighter. I think Hench is just one of them big guys who's just going to wing in big shots. I think Mitchell's going to win. I think he's going to perhaps look good, and if he is able to look good, could go in to fight, progress on. If he could fight like an Idris Virgo, I feel like that could be an interesting contest if he beats Hench convincingly here, but I don't know if Idris would really want that fight. So, again, like I say, it's a strange contest. I don't even believe that they're really, two that bigger fighter, bigger names again. It's another one of them things. But Mitchell, I would say, would win. I think he is actually a skilled boxer and will win. Moving on to Plemons versus Warrior. This is the kind of HS Tiki Toki rejects fight, I suppose, is the way of putting it. HS is not allowed in the country at the moment, and so this fight versus Plemons may happen if he's able to beat Warrior. If he is able to do that, they did the face off in the Qatar card. It was a very strange face off. It was like they're trying to do something out of WWE, but they just made it look quite cringe, to be honest. And to be honest, why Wade Plemons versus HS Tiki Toki is beyond me. HS didn't even know who he was, so why put them against each other? It's a very strange one. HS, I think, has the ability, if he is matched correctly, to get to a level where he is able to main event a card, but I just don't think he's crazily skilled and has got a lot of things, stopping him from fighting a lot. But then Warrior was meant to fight HS, but then they had a kerfuffle in a hotel, Warrior and HS, and I don't even know what happened, but that was meant to be on the Qatar card and that didn't happen. So now we have Plemons versus Warrior instead. It's a fight in which, again, it makes no sense as a matchup to be put together. There's no real hype, there's no real needle behind it. Perhaps, well, at least Plemons versus HS had a little bit because HS was always going to bring that entertainment aspect, but I just don't feel like either of them two are going to do that. I feel like Plemons is a bit of a, perhaps, fan favourite to an extent. I feel like people in the Misfits scene respect him and are going to want him to do well from the work in which he has put in around the scene, and it is interesting to see how he'll come in and do. And Warrior, I think he does have skills, and I believe he's been training hard, and he's, I believe, a Love Island person, but he's looks very built. He seemingly had more time to train, more time to learn, but Plemons seemingly had a bit of time as well. I think Warrior might win this one. I think Plemons maybe jumping in a bit too soon. I believe he has had quite a bit of time to train and to get his skills to a level, and I'm sure he's not jumping in where he's at a real novice level. But I still think Warrior will be able to win and perhaps then go on to fight HS. Like I say, I feel like the winner of this is probably going to fight HS, probably not in the UK. We're going to have to wait and see the next card in which perhaps is in Qatar or something like that. But yeah, it's an introduction for both fighters to the Misfits scene. I feel like both of them, if progressed correctly, whoever wins could be maybe not a star. Plemons could be a star in the Misfits scene. I don't know about Warrior. We would have to wait and see. But I think Warrior is going to win. And now moving on to the main event. Like I say, it's a strange card. It's a card in which doesn't really bring too much hype for me personally, but I thought, like I say, I would go through it. But now we go to the main event, and we have Till versus Taylor. Like I spoke about him a bit, Till in UFC, it was always sad, to be honest, because he seemingly had so much skills and so much ability and so much talent, but he was just never able to really kind of get to the levels in which a lot of people expected. And as a British UFC MMA fan, seeing the success in which British fighters are having now is excellent, and I'm loving it. But it was during a time in which we'd had a long time without much British success, and we have Michael Bisping, of course, way realistically before Till, and then Till came in and gave us that bit of hope, and then obviously it kind of shown that he wasn't quite able to deal with the levels in which it was quite world level, and had injuries and things like that, which also halted him, and just lots of things going on. But he's always been that entertaining character, like I mentioned, and always been able to sell any kind of fight he's in. This fight is probably going to have to sell to the British fans as a fight in which he actually cares about, because I don't know if he actually cares about this fight. There's been talks about Till, perhaps being on certain substances or anything like that. I don't know if Misfits are even going to check for that, but, I don't think he is. I would like to hope he isn't. He, like I say, I believe he's willing to take the toughest test, and he was always willing to do that in the UFC as well. He had that weird boxing fight in the pro debut where he didn't look awful for the round and a bit that actually was happening until everything kicked off and his opponent came and just started scrapping in the ring after getting knocked down. But is he actually going to be able to deal with a level of somebody like Taylor, who's been fighting regularly and been able to have success? As Till said, Taylor's style isn't really that nice on the eye for the most part, but I think it's improving, and I think it's been forced to change. I think Taylor probably has been told by misfits or by mams to basically say, if you keep fighting like this, if you keep just tying up and making fights really dull and boring, the entertainment aspect is lost and you probably won't get the fights in which you want. So since then, Taylor, in that last fight especially versus Silva, he was definitely still in your face and definitely still rushing in. He's changed his style a few times. He had that peekaboo type style, then he had a purely type grappling style. Before the peekaboo type style, he had that journeyman type style. But now he's come in with a bit more of an aggressive style, still in your face, really rushing in a lot. But he looked good and was landing quite good against Silva and had success. And I think Taylor's going to win via unanimous decision. I think he's probably going to rush in on Till and make it hard for him the entire fight, just being in his face. And I don't think Till quite has the power to be able to slow down Taylor. I think Till's going to be able to take shots, and I think he's not going to go out on his not go out on his shield, and really going to be tough and durable, and like I say, be able to take damage and be able to come through that. But I think, like I say, I think Taylor's output, I think Taylor would much prefer kind of a mid-range type contest. I think Taylor is that tough test for anybody, and in stylistic wise, not going to be a nice matchup for Till to have to deal with. And then I think, like I say, Taylor's going to win via unanimous decision. Then who he could go on to fight next? I mean, seemingly Taylor's one of the only fighters who are willing to stay around the misfits kind of scene and isn't really wanting to go into the professional boxing kind of seen too much. I think he knows where his money is. He's been and done professional boxing, and he's realised that it's just not really for him, and that he doesn't really want to go back into it. And he's enjoying his time, and does have a entertaining to an extent type personality where he is able to call out a lot of fighters, and he's finally getting given opportunities now. So you could perhaps say he would go on to fight Gibb. I don't think Gibb has really too much interest in it, but perhaps it could be a fight. It's just I don't know who really has interest in fighting Taylor. Perhaps Papi again, because the fight between the two of them the first time was when Taylor was fighting that quite boring style and was making it tough for him. So perhaps that could be a fight that Papi would want to avenge that. So that could happen. Tommy Fury, perhaps the rematch for that. Not too sure. I really doubt it, to be honest. It would be perhaps a nicer matchup for Fury than that of Till, because at least he's not going to say that he's going to kick him in the face. But I think Fury has probably washed away his career, to be completely honest. I think he's perhaps waiting for Jake Paul to possibly do a rematch, KSI maybe. If not, I just think, like I say, he really has washed away his career, and by not taking this fight, it's just not going to benefit him in the long run. And to be honest, a lot of boxing fans don't even class him as a fighter, don't even, he said he's a pro fighter, but a lot of people just don't believe that anymore. At least people like Taylor don't really class themselves as pro boxers. Or something like Deji, that could happen perhaps. Deji coming off a win at a very low level. I forgot the person's name in which he beat, but that could happen perhaps, and that could be a good fight to make. Deji of course has that big following, and I'm sure Taylor would appreciate and would like that fight, even if Deji doesn't have the best of records. That could happen. But yeah, like I said, I think Taylor will win this one via unanimous decision. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like it if you did, need like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.